Welcome back to the Hospice Intelligence channel. I'm Dr. Brian Haas, National Medical Director and founder of Hospice Intelligence. If you're a hospice nurse, compliance officer, or clinical manager dealing with liver disease patients, what I'm about to share could save your agency thousands of dollars and countless headaches. Here is a sobering statistic. 55% of hospice claim denials stem from documentation that fails to support a 6-month prognosis. And for liver disease patients, that number can be even higher. With Medicare spending over $27 billion annually on hospice services, the scrutiny has never been more intense. Today, I'm going to break down the 5 most critical audit pitfalls that are causing denials for liver disease hospice patients, and more importantly, I'll show you exactly how to fix them. Plus, I'll reveal how modern AI technology is revolutionizing hospice compliance by catching these errors before they ever reach Medicare. So let's dive in. Before we dive into the specific pitfalls, you need to understand what you're up against. Medicare's audit programs. These include Targeted Probe and Education, or TPE, Unified Program Integrity Contractors, and Supplemental Medical Review Contractors. These people are more aggressive than ever. For liver disease specifically, the challenge is unique. Unlike conditions like advanced cancer, where decline may be somewhat linear, liver disease like cirrhosis, hepatitis, and hepatocellular carcinoma present with fluctuations. This makes documentation incredibly challenging because you're not just documenting decline, you're documenting why those fluctuations still support a terminal prognosis. The auditors know this. They're specifically looking for gaps in your documentation logic. They want to see how you connected the dots between clinical findings and that 6-month prognosis. And unfortunately, most agencies are struggling with this challenge. So, let's dive in. Pitfall number 1 is inadequate documentation of disease progression, and this is absolutely critical for liver disease patients. Here's what I see all the time. A nurse documents albumin of 2.3 grams per deciliter, and that's it. No context, no trend, no story. When the auditor sees this, they have no idea if this represents decline, stability, or even improvement from previous values. Remember, the LCD requires albumin less than 2.5 grams per deciliter, but the auditor needs to understand the clinical difference. Here's how you can fix this. Instead of simply stating albumin 2.3 grams per deciliter, document albumin has declined from 3.2 grams per deciliter 6 months ago to 2.8 grams per deciliter 3 months ago to the current level of 2.3 grams per deciliter, indicating progressive synthetic dysfunction despite optimal medical management. Do you see the difference there? You're telling a story of decline. You're connecting the dots for the auditor. And here's a pro tip. Even if you don't have previous lab values because this is hospice, explain that. Say something like, previous laboratory trends unavailable due to hospice philosophy of comfort care. However, the current albumin of 2.3 grams per deciliter indicates significant synthetic dysfunction consistent with end-stage liver disease. Pitfall number 2 is failing to connect symptoms of liver disease pathophysiology. This is where your clinical knowledge really needs to shine in your documentation. I constantly see notes that say, patient reports fatigue or patient confused today. These generic symptom descriptions create challenges during audits because they don't demonstrate your understanding of how these symptoms relate to the underlying liver pathology. Every symptom in your liver disease patient should be tied back to hepatic dysfunction. So how do we do that? Here's how. First, instead of patient reports fatigue, document patient is experiencing increasing fatigue and confusion consistent with grade 2 hepatic encephalopathy as evidenced by altered sleep-wake cycle and difficulty with simple tasks, indicating progressive hepatic dysfunction and accumulation of neurotoxic substances. You're showing the auditor that you understand the pathophysiology. You're demonstrating that this isn't just random fatigue. This is fatigue specifically related to liver failure and the accumulation of toxins that the liver can no longer process. The same applies to every symptom. Shortness of breath due to ascites causing diaphragmatic elevation, nausea related to portal hypertension, confusion from hepatic encephalopathy. Make these connections explicit. Pitfall number 3 is incomplete ascites documentation. This is one that creates challenges for more agencies than almost any other single criterion. The LCD ascites, that is refractory to treatment, or patient's noncompliance. But most agencies document ascites as simply present or moderate. Now, that's not enough. The auditor needs to see evidence of why the ascites qualifies as refractory. Here's comprehensive ascites documentation that will survive an audit. Moderate ascites present with measurable abdominal distension, causing functional dyspnea and early satiety, limiting oral intake, despite maximum therapeutic doses of spironolactone 200 milligrams daily and furosemide 160 milligrams daily. Patient continues to require therapeutic paracentesis every 2 to 3 weeks with removal of 3 to 4 liters of fluid, indicating refractory ascites. This patient reports adherence to a low-sodium diet and medication regimen. So you need to notice what I included: the severity, the functional impact, the specific medications and dosages, the frequency of interventions required, and the evidence of patient compliance. This shows the auditor that the ascites truly meets the refractory criteria despite appropriate treatment. If the patient is non-compliant instead of refractory, document that specifically with examples of how the non-compliance manifests. Pitfall number 4 is missing functional status correlation. Many agencies document a PPS score without connecting them to liver-specific symptoms, and that's a missed opportunity for comprehensive documentation. A PPS score below 60 is an important general decline indicator in audits, but auditors need to see the connection between the functional decline and the hepatic disease progression. So here's how to document functional status properly for liver disease. PPS score has declined from 70% at admission to a current 50% over the past 3 months, primarily due to recent hepatic encephalopathy episodes requiring assistance with daily activities, increasing weakness secondary to protein energy malnutrition related to poor hepatic synthetic function, and dyspnea from ascites limiting mobility. You're not just reporting a number. You're explaining why that number represents liver disease progression. You're connecting functional decline directly to hepatic pathophysiology. We can also document specific examples. The patient previously was independent with bathing and dressing, but now requires assistance due to confusion during encephalopathy episodes and weakness from muscle wasting. These concrete examples help auditors understand the real-world impact of the liver disease progression. Now, pitfall number 5. And this is a big one: weak physician certification narratives. I still see agencies using generic certification statements with physicians essentially rubber stamping them. That is a missed opportunity for strong documentation. The physician's narrative must be distinct from the nurse's documentation and should explicitly connect objective indicators of decline to the patient's terminal prognosis. A weak narrative looks like this: patient has end-stage liver disease with poor prognosis. A strong audit-resistant narrative looks something like this: this 67-year-old patient with alcoholic cirrhosis demonstrates clear evidence of terminal prognosis based on progressive hepatic synthetic failure evidenced by declining albumin from 3.1 to 2.2 grams per deciliter over 6 months, prolonged PT-INR of 2.1 despite vitamin K supplementation, refractory ascites requiring biweekly paracentesis despite maximum diuretic therapy, and recurrent grade 2 to 3 hepatic encephalopathy episodes. Functional status has declined significantly with a PPS dropping from 70 to 40%, and the patient has developed protein energy malnourishment with a 15% weight loss. Given the combination of hepatic synthetic failure, refractory complications, and functional decline, this patient has a prognosis of 6 months or less if the disease course runs its expected course. Do you see the difference? The second narrative includes specific lab trends, functional decline patterns, treatment failures, and clear prognosis rationale. It tells a complete clinical story that supports the terminal diagnosis. Now, next, I want to talk about a real game changer for hospice documentation: hospice intelligence. Traditional chart reviews happen after documentation is complete. That is often too late to fix these compliance issues. That's where hospice intelligence comes in. Our proprietary, HIPAA-compliant AI platform analyzes nurse narratives in real time as they're being written, cross-referencing clinical findings against specific LCD criteria. So I'd like to show you my screen at this point so that we can give you a brief overview and tutorial showing you exactly how this works. So here we have the Hospice Intelligence platform. Now here's where I want to talk about the game changer for hospice documentation, Hospice Intelligence. Traditional chart reviews happen after documentation is complete. This is often too late to fix compliance issues. That's where Hospice Intelligence comes in. Our proprietary HIPAA-compliant AI platform analyzes nurse narratives in real time as they're being written, cross-referencing clinical findings against specific LCD criteria. So I'm showing you our screen right now, and this is the Hospice Intelligence interface. Here, a nurse will be able to enter the patient's name, test liver patient. They'll be able to select the liver disease checklist, and then they will be able to enter their nurse narrative. Now, by all accounts, this is a relatively robust note. It has a number of criteria that are present here, and it seems that it's well written. So here, the nurse will go ahead and select the Evaluate Note feature, and it will start to run its check. Unfortunately, audits are often run by non-clinicians. Because this is a non-clinician that is doing this audit, it's difficult to find those specific keywords that they're looking for. So what we have here is a note that shows us that they were able to document 3 of the specific criteria. However, it's quite possible that this patient has a number of other criteria. So for instance, this patient has ascites. And so we're going to go ahead and include that they have ascites that's present. They've had prior infections before, and the nurse just unfortunately forgot to include that. And so we're going to have the opportunity to include that here. We scroll down to the section on prior infections. There it is. This patient's also lost a number this patient has also lost a large amount of weight. So we're going to include that here. The patient has been having ongoing cough. And increasing phlegm, so we can include that into the dysphagia category. And they've also had refractory nausea as well. So we've included those extra aspects, and now we're able to click the rewrite note, and our proprietary AI is able to then take the excellent pre-written note that the nurse was able to do, adding in the additional information, and then coming up with a substantially more compliant nurse narrative. So most notes that are screened by Hospice Intelligence allow nurses to capture an additional 2 to 3 LCD criteria. This note that we just gave the example for was able to capture an additional 5 LCD criteria. So instead of discovering documentation deficiencies during an audit, you're able to get proactive alerts when notes don't meet established criteria. This allows for immediate correction while clinical information is still fresh and accessible. Now, all the nurse needs to do is revise the note, and the AI-powered Hospice Intelligence will take the original note, the additional criteria that we have entered, and craft a well-written, grammatically correct, and easy-to-read note ready for entry into the Hospice EMR. Listen, proper documentation for liver disease hospice patients isn't just about avoiding audits. It's about ensuring these patients and their families receive uninterrupted, compassionate care during their most vulnerable time. The 5 pitfalls we've covered today are completely preventable with the right knowledge and tools. Remember, document disease progression with trends, connect every symptom to liver pathophysiology, provide comprehensive ascites details, and correlate functional decline to hepatic symptoms, and ensure that your physician narratives tell a complete clinical story. If you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're releasing new compliance content every week to help you provide you better patient care while protecting your agency's revenue. And if you're ready to see how Hospice Intelligence can transform your documentation process, check out the demo in the link description below. Our AI platform is helping agencies across the country achieve consistent LCD compliance while improving clinical outcomes. Until next time, keep documenting with confidence, and remember, better documentation means better patient care.